know what? I think that at least in this area of South Jersey, and I think it's been creating a ripple effect, I've seen a lot of women attorneys embracing branding or picking colors for their firm that they wouldn't have picked prior to this. I'm not saying I'm the first person who invented it. I'm saying that I think the fact that I went with it and it is so well branded now, people realize that they can be authentic and choose what makes them happy and still be professional. And I know Tom is going to love this story, but when my associate started working with me, she said, I'm really not a pink girl. And, I wear pink quite often, and I, hand out what I call merp, which is pink. And she said, I'm good with light pink, but I'm not really good with a bright pink. And I had a bag, which was a briefcase bag that was a pink like this. And we were walking through the court, and she said, it's just a little too bright for me. And I said, oh, this is my fuck you pink. And she looked at me, and I was like, yes. I was like, light pink is like the nice pink. But this pink, excuse my language, is a fuck you pink to people. And she said, oh my goodness, I can totally get behind that. And I said, absolutely. Louis Casady is calling me.
This podcast is not a source of legal advice. No two legal cases are the same. Contact an attorney if you require legal assistance.
Welcome back to the Mighty Merp podcast, where we dive into the heart of justice, advocacy, and people making a difference behind the scenes. Today, I am honored to be joined by Prescott Loveland, a dedicated attorney with the New Jersey Office of the Public Defender. Prescott has spent his career fighting for fairness and dignity within our legal community, and he currently plays a leading role in one of the most exciting developments at the New Jersey Office of Public Defender, a new holistic defense pilot program designed to change the way we think about public defense in New Jersey. In this episode, we talk about Prescott's personal legal journey, from what first inspired him to pursue the law to the values that have guided his work. We will also explore the powerful idea behind holistic defense and how the New Jersey Office of Public Defender is implementing it and what it means for clients, families, and communities across the state. Welcome, Prescott.
Thanks, Melissa. Happy to be here.
Excited to have this conversation. I know we've had it on the books for a really long time, it feels like.
Yeah. And I'm happy to be here. Happy to talk more about New Jersey and holistic collaborative defense. So thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. So let's start, before we jump into the holistic defense pilot program, let's start at the beginning, a little bit of your origin story, where you grew up, your background, and maybe a little bit about how you decided to go to law school or become a public defender.
Sure. So I am from New Jersey. I am New Jersey born and raised. I'm proud of it. I love New Jersey. I started my life's journey in Middlesex County.
And I was going to say where you have to when you say you're from New Jersey, you have to declare it.
I'll give you all the geography. In Middlesex County and in elementary school, I moved down to Brick, New Jersey, shore town, big blue-collar beach town on the border of Ocean and Monmouth County, which is where I did my schooling. But my parents were separated, and so I still spent my weekends elsewhere often, whether that was Edison, New Jersey with my father, or Phillipsburg, New Jersey with my father, or right across the river in Easton, Pennsylvania with where my dad lived. So a little bit all over New Jersey, but I'm very much from the shore.
There you go. I love when people say they're from all over New Jersey because you understand that there's different flavors of New Jersey. And I say that as someone who grew up in North Jersey. And then my adult life, I've been living in Camden County and Atlantic County. And now I practice in all the southern regions. So definitely has different flavors.
What's your position on whether Central Jersey exists?
I didn't even know there was a South Jersey that existed until about 30 years ago when I moved down here. And I thought, what? where are the Giants and the Yankees? What do you mean I get all Philadelphia teams? So I'm going to say I don't believe there's a Central Jersey. I
Okay,
think
well,
if you are a Philadelphia Eagles fan, you are South Jersey. And if you are a New York Giants fan or a New York Jets fan, you are North Jersey. And that's the division.
well, I'm sorry to have a disagreement off the bat, Melissa. I've spent most of my life in Central Jersey. I can assure you it exists, but I think that's maybe for another episode.
Sure, but what teams?
Yankees, Giants, Devils, Nets. Though, you know, I that question could make some listeners dislike me immediately. So I hope they won't hold that against me if they're Eagles fans or Boston fans. But I don't think there are any Boston fans in New Jersey, so
No.
never
But I
mind.
would say like my children are Eagles fans and Phillies fans and you know, I support them. So
Sure,
I support them and their love.
sure.
So okay, so you're from New Jersey and when you went to college, did you know you were going to be a lawyer?
No, I did not. But and you did ask me about the journey to law school. So there was a few reasons I went to law school. I did not know when I went to college that I wanted to go to law school, but by the time I went to law school, I knew I wanted to be a public defender. And
Oh, okay.
the reason was largely, I guess there were several reasons, but the reason was largely because my father was system impacted and also struggled with addiction throughout my life. And despite those things, he was a fantastic father. He
Hmm.
taught me how to tie a tie. He taught me how to kick a soccer ball. He was loving and kind and dynamic. And so it showed me at an early age that the people that society often demonizes, or the people that
Hmm.
are often demonized by society, are the same people that others love a great deal.
Right.
And so the ground was ripe for me to not think like everyone else does about those who are involved in the criminal legal system. And then when in college, I realized I wanted to have a career that was motivated toward making the world a little bit better and motivated toward serving and motivated toward working against some of the injustices that had already become apparent to me, became even more apparent to me in college when I saw how the criminal legal system especially impacts many people who don't look like my father, impacts many people who are black and brown and poor and have mental health struggles and who have been failed by other systems in our society.
Right.
So by the time I got to law school, I knew that I wanted to be a public defender. And so I spent my entire law school career becoming the best one I could. And that included in many internships in public defense. It including adding a social work degree. I got a JD and MSW, so I have a background in
Hmm.
social work as well, and honing my trial skills. And so I did all that at Fordham University in the Bronx as an undergrad and in Manhattan as a law student and a social work student.
So I always say uh, to people, especially prosecutors, and I think you know, I was a public defender when I started out. I started in Philadelphia at the public defender's office there. If individuals met people in the criminal justice system and you got to know that person as an individual, as a father or a son or just a friend, you would have such a different perspective of people involved and also the assistance that they need. So, what you said was very powerful. And so, it's interesting that you said you knew right when, at some point in college, that this was the direction that you were going. Did you go straight from college to law school?
No. So, by the time I finished college, I was pointed in this direction, but I still, I didn't know any lawyers. I didn't know exactly what it took to become a lawyer. I didn't know any lawyers intimately anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how I would pay for law school. I didn't know if it was the right time and financial investment. So I couldn't quite make the jump.
Mm-hmm.
But I kept coming back to the idea month after month. And a mentor of mine at the time said, the map is not the terrain. You keep thinking about it. You keep thinking that you're going to like it. You keep reading about it, but you should go try it. And so what I did is I spent a year as a defense investigator
Uh-huh.
and a client advocate in Louisiana. And so that was through a program called the Jesuit Volunteer Corps. And so it was a year of service working in
Mm-hmm.
public defense. And I loved it. I recognized it broke my heart and I loved it. I recognized fully that this is exactly what I wanted to do. Both based on my experiences growing up and that professional experience, there's been no looking back since. So I spent 2 years between college and law school, 3 years, excuse me, between college and starting law school. And I also spent a little time as a fundraising and strategic planning consultant for nonprofit organizations, some skills that I've called upon today in my new role with the New Jersey Office of the Public Defender.
Right. I mean, it sounds like your commitment to public service has been throughout your life, and which is amazing. I will share this with you is that my daughter, who went to college and graduated, was vacillating between getting her master's in social work or going to law school. And I begged her to do a dual program. Begged. And she said, no, I'm going to get my master's in social work. So she is getting her master's in social work and she loves it.
Great.
And she was in class, though, and they were having a debate on an issue. And during the course of the debate, somebody jokingly said, are you sure you're in the right program? It sounds like you should be in law school and not. And she laughed and she said, I know. She's like, that'll be my next career. So her mindset is she'll work for a few years as a social worker and then probably go back to law school. And I'm like, I love you, but I wish you would have listened to do it at one time. But sometimes it's the journey and the learning, right?
Sure. And she can, if she has the bandwidth and the energy for more schooling, it's not too late if she decides she wants to pursue the law. But one thing that I'm going to talk about today is how powerful non-lawyers are from where I sit too, and especially in a team defense model.
So let's talk about the Holistic Defense Pilot Program. And can you explain what holistic defense means in the context of public defense?
One way to think about public defense and to understand public defense is to think about the word collaborative. A good analogy for holistic defense is collaborative defense. And by that, I mean thinking about how well am I collaborating with my colleagues in the course of representing someone? How well am I collaborating with the community in the course of representing someone? And how well am I collaborating with the person I'm representing? And so there are many different ways to practice holistic defense. There are many definitions of holistic defense, but most of them boil down to taking a more team-based approach to defense work, having better community connections during that representation and as an organization, and involving other people, key other people in the representation, key non-attorney roles and non-criminal attorney roles, if we're talking about the criminal context. And they really boil down to those things and to being more interdisciplinary in our approach. And I think some examples will help. Right? So if we are meeting a client, a person that we represent, and we recognize that they have a mental health case happening at the same time, or a mental health diagnosis that is going to impact our representation, that may have impacted the reason that they came into contact with the system, that's going to be important as we communicate with our client and as we work toward a disposition with our client, then we should be looping in the other people who can help us understand that mental health diagnosis, who can help us work with that client, the other attorney that they may have in their mental health case, the social worker who can help us understand their diagnosis and help us communicate effectively with that client and help us talk about that client's story and challenge with complexity and nuance. And that we're better able to do that if we are taking a thoughtful, team-based approach to our work. So holistic defense is collaborative defense. It's interdisciplinary defense. It is team-based defense. And it has a real emphasis on taking a broader view of who our clients are and on better mitigation telling a better story.
Right. I think those of us who have worked in criminal defense for years knows that our clients, what they're in court for is not the only underlying issue that they might need help and support on. And so if there is mental health or there's addiction, food insecurity, housing issues, if we're not able to fix a lot of the underlying issues, then they're not likely to be successful in the long run, or they could be successful with the one case. You can win the one case, but it doesn't mean that they'll be able to. My goal is always to get an individual out of the criminal justice system in a way that they don't return and they have the resources to possibly thrive and succeed. And I will tell you, there is nothing better than going out in the community and having a client, former client, say, "You were my attorney and thank you." And it happens, a lot of times when I'm going to different restaurants or I'm just in the community and my kids, they shake their head and it's funny because sometimes, I'll be pulling up to a Dunkin' Donuts and the manager's like, "You were my attorney. Thank you so much." And, and now he has a job, he's managing and succeeding. So yeah, I think it's great.
I will say, Melissa, go ahead. Sorry, Melissa.
No, I was going to just ask a little bit more about the program and what that collaborative effort looks like. But no, share what you were going to say.
I just wanted to agree with you that there's no better feeling in this work to seeing a client who is doing well and who conveys some level of appreciation for the conscientious representation that they received from you as a defender. I think it's important, though, and I often, when I'm talking about collaborative defense or team-based defense, to remember two things. One is that, yes, a core foundational value of holistic defense is trying to look beyond just the criminal case, trying to look at the life circumstances that are bringing someone into contact with the system and understand them more as just a case, to understand them as more than just a case, to understand them with more complexity, but also that even the most holistic models, even the most collaborative, community-based models, even the most well-resourced models are also not working miracles. Mm-hmm. And by being more holistic, we're not solving the education crisis, solving the mental health crisis, solving the housing crisis, especially in New Jersey. And I think it's important to remind defenders that they shouldn't necessarily expect that. And when they're becoming more holistic, even though we do have some success stories where we've made that good referral or we've pitched that good release plan and it's really worked. And in part because of that, the client has not come back into contact with the system. So,
right, because we all have stories of the heartbreak as well.
Yes, many. Yes. And that's because our role is limited, right? Our role is limited in the system too. As public defenders, we are here to support and guide someone who's navigating the most challenging moment of their life. And no doubt when people are coming into contact, especially with the criminal legal system, and it's not just about criminal defense here, public or criminal public defense, there are other types of public defense. But no doubt when someone is coming into contact with the legal system, they are facing one of the most difficult moments of their life. And for many reasons, right? Because this could mean they never get a job again. This could mean they end up incarcerated for weeks, months, or years. This could mean the separation of their family. This contact with the legal system could be a life-altering moment for them. And the best we can do as public defenders is fight as hard as we can, as zealously as we can, as holistically as we can. But in the end, other things are necessary in order to put someone in a better position, because we often don't have the power to change the circumstances that someone came from.
Why is the Public Defender's Office launching this shift now? What prompted the change?
Yeah. So we have a new leader, Jennifer Saletti, who was sworn in as the public defender last year. And she is excellent and visionary and a very person-centered lawyer, and she's been at the public defender's office here in New Jersey for a long time, and she's been holistic in her practice. And when she took the reins as the public defender, she came with many priorities, all of which are important. One of them was, I want to turn toward a new model. I want to turn toward a more holistic, collaborative model of defense. And so that was the charge. And the way that we're doing that is, and I'll just say, at the time that Jen Saletti became the public defender, I was practicing in DC at the Public Defender Service for DC, where I'd sort of carved a niche for myself as a team-based defender and would help train on that topic and plan on that topic with the organization there. And when Jen became the public defender and announced this new focus, I knew it was time to go home. I knew it was time to come home to New Jersey and help be part of that process. So we're improving our model in New Jersey in a number of ways. We're making it more holistic and collaborative in a number of ways. And one of them is this pilot program that we have. So in 3 of our regions or counties in New Jersey, Hudson in the north, Monmouth in central, because central Jersey exists, Melissa, and Atlantic in South Jersey, we are taking a more holistic approach to public defense. And we're changing a lot in those regions. So for instance, we've partnered with this fantastic organization called Partners for Justice. And Partners for Justice is doing a number of things with us. One of them is providing technical assistance on how to become more collaborative, helping us look at our processes and our systems. But the most substantive thing they're doing is embedding client advocates, non-attorney advocates in our regions to help link clients to services and resources, to provide general support to clients who need an extra hand through the course of their representation, and to focus on mitigation, on providing better information on our clients to judges and prosecutors in order to tell a more nuanced, holistic story about the people we represent, because they deserve that. And so we're really focused on that program in those 3 regions. The other things we're doing in those regions is changing intake, where we're changing how we do intake in those regions by meeting our clients earlier in the process and in a more substantial way, and making sure that we identify those clients who are best suited for a team-based approach. And doing that by changing our system, our processes, our intake forms, who's doing the intake interviews, the questions that we're asking about people's mental health struggles, about their other cases that they may have open in other sections of the agency or in other regions of the state, about who the most supportive people in their life are, so we could loop them into the process, about asking them about who can write for them, who can speak to some of their strengths and their challenges. What uncle, counselor, or coach can come in and help with this representation? Who has the shoebox of photos under the bed that we can use to show the judge and tell a better story about who you are? And so making sure that we are asking about more than just the criminal case, but not forgetting, of course, that the criminal case is still driving the representation. These are still lawyer-led teams. And of course, also asking and investigating and doing the excellent, zealous criminal defense work as well.
Who are the non-attorney advocates? Are they social workers? Are they students? Are they people within the communities?
It's a blend. So the non-attorney advocates who have come to us through Partners for Justice, many are from New Jersey. Several are aspiring social workers. Some are aspiring lawyers. Several of them have been system impacted themselves, and that was important to us. We've recruited some of them with PFJ's help through the NJ STEP, the organization that helps provide education and career opportunities to people while incarcerated. So there's a mix.
And in addition to Partners for Justice, it's my understanding and I know this because I'm on the front lines of other public service
Sure.
organizations, that you have reached out to local organizations that are community-based organizations as well to assist.
Yes. So our turn toward a more holistic model really has three foundational features, Melissa. They are taking an expanded look at who our clients are, expanded insight into our clients. Two, being more team oriented, and three, being more community connected. So it's that third one that has driven us to, as an organization, systematically be better at a few things. One, understanding what other organizations in New Jersey, in each county, in each town, are also serving the people that we serve, are the community resources that exist. The big community resources like Jewish Family Services or Volunteers of America, to the church basement that serves lunch on the weekends. Really understanding what the community resources are, who they're available to, what they do, what they offer, what their selection and disqualification criteria are, and have a good understanding of that in every region, in every office, so we can be better at linking our clients to those services. And
Right.
so, part of what that's involved is meeting with those organizations, sitting down and saying, here's who we are as the public defender's office. We want to know more about you. What does a good referral look like? Who qualifies for your services? And making sure we have a good database of that.
Right. And the synergy of how the community can come in and provide what they can provide. But some nonprofits and community programs will say we won't accept an individual with certain charges. And, so I think it's great that you're meeting ahead of time with those community-based organizations. And each region and each county has their own community programs. So, in Atlantic County, one of the pilot programs, Jewish Family Services of Atlantic and Cape May County, we're already in the court system. And I say we, about 48 hours ago, less than 48 hours ago, I was installed as president of Jewish Family Services. So
Congratulations.
thank you. So I'm going to say we already have justice informed services. We are at the jail, the Atlantic County Justice Facility already. We already work with individuals that are in the justice system. So it's a perfect partnership already. Right. But we're only in right now Atlantic and Cape May. So right. Another county might have a different organization that serves the community.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I'm glad you said that, because Public Defender Facility has really made sure that as we turn toward a more holistic model, that we're not recreating the wheel, right? We are not trying to step into the service delivery space outside of providing the excellent legal representation that we provide to people who are court involved. We are trying to be better as we enter the service linkage space and link people to the services that already exist, like JFS in Atlantic, which is just doing fantastic work in Atlantic County, and being better at understanding what that work is. And your colleagues at JFS have helped us understand. They've come to the office, they've met with us, they've brought their materials, they're fielding our phone calls and emails. And that's what we're trying to do statewide. Now, that may seem so like such an obvious priority to some people, but this is a big state. 9.3 million people, 21 different regions. We have practice areas. I've focused on criminal defense for most of this conversation so far, but we represent parents in family court. Right. We represent youth in family court, both in delinquency court and those whose parents have been accused of abuse and neglect. We represent people in mental health cases. We represent people on parole. I have a board in my office that sort of has the whole organization broken into its different processes and our different units, and it's full. We do so much in this organization. So becoming more holistic organization-wide and in all the places and ways that we practice is, as Public Defender Society says, like turning a very big ship. And that's not always a quick turn, right?
It's not
And
quick. Right. And every county there's a uniqueness to it. I mean, we jokingly talked about North Jersey and South Jersey and okay, Central Jersey.
see, you're conceding. Thank you.
But, well, I would say there is a central region. I just not sure if there's a central personality
Okay, I
like
see.
North Jersey
I
versus
see.
South Jersey.
Okay.
But the point really is that things that the communities are different. The
Yeah.
resources are different, the services are different. And I jokingly say when I moved to this area that, well, after North Jersey and then Philly, I had to tame my North Jersey down a little in South Jersey. So, but I also thank you for stating that the New Jersey Office of Public Defender does so much more than just handle criminal cases in court.
Right.
Because I think that's what people believe. I would also say, and I know you know this, but I want all of our listeners to know, every public defender that's in court with you is a lawyer, and they went to the same amount of law school as I did. And they
Mhm.
are there because they believe in the mission and the service.
That's
And
right.
but that you're in children in court
Mhm.
and you're representing juveniles in delinquency court, and there's just so many more facets than just I think what people's mind is when you say public defender.
Right. Right. And it's sort of, we're trying to look at all those facets and be more holistic and collaborative throughout the agency, and to build a model, Melissa, that's thoughtful and sustainable and informed by regional leadership and regional needs. And as you said, there are many different types of communities in New Jersey. We have big cities, we have city-like suburbs, we have suburb-like cities, we have river towns, we have shore towns, we have
have
rural towns and
farmlands.
mountain towns and farmlands, and one size does not fit all when it comes to how you be more holistic or collaborative. I would be remiss if I didn't say that, holistic defense is not entirely new at the New Jersey Office of the Public Defender. Many attorneys at this office, many non-attorneys at this office have been holistic and collaborative in their own way, have been good at mitigation, have been good at linking their clients to services. What's new is that it is a major priority of the public defender. It is a core value. It is new as a fundamental leadership principle. And that's exciting because that really trickles down and informs how we are training, spending our resources, talking with one another. I've been so excited to work with the rest of the leadership team, the people from the different sections of this agency who are all bought in. They are excited about collaborative defense, and everyone is thinking about how they can make their section of the agency more collaborative, more holistic.
Right. How are you measuring success or progress for holistic defense? How would the agency itself, the public defender's office, measure it?
There's not one way to measure success when it comes to the overarching question of how holistic or collaborative are you being. But we are looking at all facets of the work. We're looking at the questions we're asking, the number of people we're linking to services, the type of services we're linking them to, the client's goal when they come into the representation. We're identifying those and noting those and looking at how many of those goals we're accomplishing, including the extra legal goals. So there's not one way to measure it, but we are looking closely at how successful it's going to be. And excuse me, I'm going to back up 1 second. We're looking closely at our success and how effective this is, both in a qualitative way and a quantitative way. And that's part of the reason that we have these pilot regions, is because we recognize that we're going to learn lessons from how we're doing it differently in 3 of our counties, so we can spread the effective approaches, the successful methods statewide, and the things that didn't work quite as well, we can leave behind.
Right. I love that the focus is a lot of it seems initially with the intake and the interview and the meeting of the client. I've taught CLEs for years. I have discussed that initial interview, and I think the least important part of that interview is tell me what happened regarding the charges that they're in front of me on. And most of my interview is what you're talking about already. But, I ask, who do they live with? Who are they living with? Are, not just married, single, what their relationship is with people. I go back to where you graduated high school. I say things like, depending on their age, if your mom or dad or somebody was here or your biggest cheerleader was here, what positive things would they say? Also the always asking the drugs, addiction to drugs or alcohol. You have any physical health issues? You have any mental health issues? And I always follow up with, are you on any medication right now? And I can't tell you how many times I have clients that say no, no, no. And then I say, are you on any medication right now? And they say yes. And they'll give me a list of medicines. And I'll say, well, that's an asthma medicine. So you must be diagnosed with asthma, or that's a high blood pressure medicine. And they're like, oh, I didn't think about that. Or that medicine sometimes is given if someone has anxiety or depression. Do you know if you've been diagnosed? And so it opens up doors to conversations to then lead to the connections that need to be made.
Yeah, I agree. I think that one of the, public defense, criminal defense is dynamic work, and being good at interviewing people and asking the right questions is such an essential part of this role. And I think you just gave some great examples of that. The one that I've liked the most, the simple question that has given me some of the best information when I meet my clients is, who's the most supportive person in your life?
Mm-hmm.
And inevitably, most of the time, the answer that they give to that question is one of the most helpful people through the course of the representation.
Mm-hmm.
The person who knows where those records are that could be helpful, the person who can be a comfort to client during the most difficult times. Of course, that's not the only question. There are other important ones too, but it's just an example of how what happened is not necessarily the most important question when you first meet someone. And also litigating what happened, what led to someone's arrest is usually not addressed at the first appearance, right?
No.
And you also haven't built trust with your client. And so you don't know what kind of answer you'll get to that question and whether they'll want to be candid with you in that moment. It's, I think, better to try to understand your client as a dynamic human. And of course, what sort of impact is being held in this case, being incarcerated, going to have on your life? Let me try to convince the judge that they shouldn't do that. Focusing your interview there can be, I guess, should be a major priority for defenders.
I'm going to ask you some maybe bigger system type questions for you. So let's talk about how the Office of the Public Defenders work with other stakeholders, courts, prosecutors, community organizations, and the push for reform. What's it like when the stakeholders are at the table? Is there support for these type of programs? Is there pushback? What are you seeing?
I think it depends on the priority we're talking about. With regard to holistic defense, the courts and the prosecutors, frankly, have been pretty receptive, because I think they recognize that a major part of being more holistic and being more collaborative is providing better information to prosecutors, to judges, to tell a more nuanced story about the person who is being cycled through this system. And people don't usually complain about getting better information. And I think most people recognize fundamentally, even when they come from different perspectives, that a system that is operating on more information about someone can be fairer. And the second reason is because a major foundational purpose of being more holistic and collaborative is better links to services, better links to programs, which often means alternatives to incarceration. And if we can have people who are dedicated and devoted to understanding what resources exist and being better at linking people going through the system to those resources, I think that is an idea worth praising, whether you're a judge or a prosecutor, especially a defender. Most importantly, if you're a person who is system involved.
What are the biggest challenges then facing the Public Defender's Office of New Jersey?
With regard to holistic defense, I think
I'll let you answer it both ways.
Yeah, I'll stay with holistic defense and defer to some of my other colleagues on challenges they may be facing in their areas of expertise. But I think some of the biggest challenges of implementing a new model is that organizational change is hard. Right? This is a very big organization of nearly 1,300 people operating throughout the state. And that makes change even harder. And so any type of organizational change can be challenging, especially when people's habits, people's practices, people's mindsets are already formed. Right? So you're fundamentally asking people to do something a different way. And that's not always easy. Another challenge is that even in a fantastic organization like this, the system operates in a very high volume way. Many people are being arrested. Many people are being accused. Many people are being cycled through the system. And so it's a very high volume practice, too high volume from my perspective. And so asking people to change how they're doing something when they have really high caseloads, when they already feel stretched with regard to the resources that they have, can sometimes feel like you're asking too much.
Right. So they have pressures.
Yes.
Not just in the office, and not just with clients per se,
right,
who are the people you're serving and want to have a fair and just results, but they have pressures within the courts between judges, court staff, sheriff's officer. Like, there's a lot of outside pressures as well, right?
Right, certainly. And just the pressure of the job, right? Which can be real. We're dealing with pretty serious things. But what we try to do is not ask too much. And I will just say a credit to the staff at OPD and especially the staff in the pilot regions who have embraced taking a more holistic, collaborative approach. They really have embraced it. And I will say, Melissa, I'm not sure what your experience has been, but those fresh out of law school lawyers or those lawyers who became lawyers in the last few years, they are really invested in a more collaborative, holistic approach. And it's fantastic to see. And it makes me hopeful about the future of public defense in New Jersey and everywhere.
So I agree. And I'm going to say this, that I have tried to woo many of them to come to private practice in my office because they believe in the commitment of the representation and the advocacy. Right. And I have tried to woo them, and they are happy and proud to be where they are. So
please don't steal our lawyers, Melissa.
I know. I just want one. I only need one, just one more. That's it. But every once in a while I'll say something and then I'm like, I know you're happy where you are. And I am going to do a shout out to the Atlantic County Public Defenders because they really do a great job. And when I have clients call for intakes and they say, well, I just have a public defender. And I am the first one to say, well, you have an attorney and that attorney's name is, and they do work at the public defender's office. And then sometimes I will say, let me tell you about them, things that you don't know.
Right.
Because I know that those attorneys are not going to necessarily share their success. And sometimes I'll say, this is what I can bring to the table that's different. But, I agree with you. You have a lot. I know a lot of the great young attorneys there, and they're committed and they're excited about this approach.
Mm-hmm. The other thing, Melissa, that the why, right? The reason that we that we should be holistic defenders, that we as an organization should turn toward a more holistic collaborative model. There are many answers to that. There are studies that show that it reduces the system's reliance on incarceration without an increase in crime. There are studies that show that people who are being cycled through the system, when a more holistic approach is taken, or an approach that they see as more fair, that contributes to their perspective on the system. Also, it's about staying well, right? We as lawyers are not necessarily well. We have, and I don't mean all of it, I'm not generalizing, not all lawyers, not all public defenders, but generally we have a high rate of burnout, a high rate of compassion fatigue, high rates of problematic substance use and abuse. And, some of that comes from feeling like we're representing people in really serious circumstances, but not doing it as well as we can. And maybe not making the difference we could be making if we were taking a more holistic, collaborative approach. So it contributes to wellness. It contributes to attorney wellness and helps prevent the burnout that many people experience in this industry. And that's not the most important reason to do it, but it is an important reason to be more holistic.
But a healthy attorney and a well attorney is a better advocate.
Exactly.
I'm not sure if you know, but I'm on the Supreme Court Wellness Committee, and I've spoken about wellness at a number of CLEs. And, the statistics of lawyers that are suffering from burnout, suicidal ideation, mental health, alcoholism it's scary. And that's why the Wellness Committee was formed. And so I agree, but I think that it really does come back to the representation and makes it better for everyone.
Thank you for being on that committee, Melissa.
Oh, thank you. It's one of the organizations or committees that I'm involved in that I'm very proud of what we've done, and we've really have created an atmosphere and voice in New Jersey to be able to talk about mental health and wellness in a way that I think even 3 years ago nobody would admit or acknowledge there was a problem. So,
and I'm also glad you put it the way you did about attorneys who are well are better attorneys, are better advocates, because I believe that wholeheartedly. Also, holistic defense, collaborative defense. Again, if you see it as something that is focused on providing better information in the course of litigation, right? Telling a client's story in a more holistic way. And 2, being better about linking people to services, that is just making better lawyers. That, our core competencies are advocating for our client and telling their story well, and understanding our client and their needs, especially as they relate to a case, and being a good referral source for our clients when they want it, when they need it.
Right. And I think what people who are not involved in the criminal justice program, what they would gain from understanding this is that the goal is to ensure that people are safe in their communities by helping people in the justice system, that they don't have to be one or the other.
Right. And I think I'm glad you said that. So Public Defender Soletti's, one of the things she likes to say is that public defense is public safety. And to put a finer point on it, sort of my version of that is, 1, if you're leveraging our trusted relationship with the people we serve or the people we represent and helping make referrals to resources that they need, there is a chance, right? A decent chance that you're helping address some of the reasons that someone's come into contact with the system. Right. So in that sense, you're potentially making society more safe, and you're certainly increasing the chances that you're making society more safe than if you were not taking a more holistic approach. The second is that if you're cycling people through the system without telling a nuanced story about them, a complex story about them, a whole story about them, that's not safety either for the people who are being cycled through the system. So
right.
public defense, when done well, when done holistically, is public safety. I agree with that sentiment.
Right. Right. Well, I'm going to say thank you so much for your time. I am going to ask you a few sort of closing questions. Well,
Sure.
before I ask the closing, which are a few personal, is there anything that you'd want to share about this new program and holistic approach in the public defender's office that I didn't ask? So that you want to say before we finish up with the conversation?
Yes, I think it's important to understand that the public defender office taking a more collaborative, holistic approach to representation does not mean or does not replace trying cases, litigating cases, exercising people's constitutional, fundamental rights in this system. I think some people hear holistic or collaborative defense and think that everyone's just going to be diverted from their constitutional right to a trial. And it's very important to understand that being collaborative and holistic makes us more effective defenders, helps us be zealous defenders. It doesn't replace the essential right for people to assert their innocence, to assert that they are not guilty, and to try a case.
Right. And have the right to a zealous advocate.
Exactly. So it enhances zealous advocacy. It does not replace it. And when done right, it does not detract from it. Because in the end, that's what our professional duty is to be competent, zealous advocates for people during the most difficult moments of their lives.
Thank you so much. Very well said. And I'm glad that you shared that. So I'm going to ask you one of the questions I ask a lot of lawyers at the end of these interviews. What advice would you give to young lawyers considering a career in public defense?
Young lawyers or law students?
That's funny. I would give different advice for both of them. So let me ask you, I'm gonna go back to young lawyers, and
Okay.
then maybe I'll ask you about law students. But you're right, because now that you clarified, I would give different advice for young lawyers.
I think my advice is probably the same for both. So my question was pointless. It is that when you ask the question about whether you should be a public defender, you have to consider a few things. You have to consider the essence of the role, right? The fact that some of the things that we talked about, that your obligation is to be as zealous and as competent an attorney for the person that you're representing. And understanding that this role is really important. It is justice work. It is racial justice work. It is economic justice work. It is constitutional justice work. It is procedural justice work. And that's great. That wakes you up in the morning. That makes you very excited to be a lawyer, and it should make you take your job very seriously, but it is also tiring. And if you burn out or tire too quickly and you become a lawyer who is not fulfilling their obligations, not reviewing the discovery, not arguing as zealously as you could, not interviewing your client as thoughtfully as you can, then you're in a very dangerous position and you shouldn't be there. So it's understanding what the essence of the role is, what the importance of the role is. And then, of course, does it suit your strengths? Because it's dynamic work. It's client counseling, it's interviewing, it's public speaking, it is written advocacy, it's oral advocacy, it's investigation, it's community-based work. And so, that should excite you too. And you should have some competency in all of those things in order to do this job well. So I tell law students who are considering it, I work a lot with the law students both here and during my time in DC, is that it's the best job in the world, but it's not for everyone. So have some certainty it's for you before you jump into it.
So that's funny. So law students, I say, a lot of law students want to be prosecutors first for some reason. And I always say, work at a public defender's office for one summer of your 3 summers of law school, or 2, just so that you see what it is that public defenders do, and you get to meet individuals in the justice system, and you understand that they're people who really need someone fighting for them, even if it ends up not being what you choose for the long haul. It is an education and an experience. And I think that it would change anyone's perspective for doing it, even just for a summer internship.
We just had over 140 interns start with us for the summer. We've been orienting them all week, and they are excited to get that experience, to get that exposure. And I see more and more every year people who are realizing earlier in their education that they think they want to be public defenders. So it's exciting for the future of the profession too.
It's amazing, 140. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's a great summer program.
It might be 148, but around there.
Thank you so much for your time. I look forward to being able to continue with the Public Defender's Office, with Jewish Family Services, and making those connections. I am excited about this program, for the success of this program, and I'm excited to see it expand throughout the whole state. Like I'm using my language now. It's not going to be like a box with a gift and a bow and a beautiful,
Right.
There's not going to be one definition of success,
Melissa, there's not one definition of success. When you're talking about a program that's dynamic and that's changing the way we're doing things in several different ways, measuring success includes many different things. It's qualitative and it's quantitative. It's looking at the data about how many people we're referring to services, about the questions we're asking, about how the program is impacting the representation, and also hearing from clients and hearing from attorneys how they feel about our new approach.
And I am so glad I have started to ask that final question of, what have you not said, or what have we not discussed that you want to? Because that specific issue about the advocacy is so important. I just had this conversation with a family. I have a client was initially charged with murder, was indicted on aggravated manslaughter, and we're doing a mitigation package with expert report right now. And expert report hasn't been concluded, but I said to the family, and it's the mom of a young adult, if the offer's right now 20 years, there's no reason not to go to trial on this case. When it gets to 5 or 6 years, then your child is going to have to make a decision. And I can never make that decision for him. The fighting the case at trial or taking a plea is always going to be his decision. I can only advise him about the possibilities, and I will advocate for him no matter what he decides. And I think that when people hear mitigation, that they think that you're not fighting. And I always call it like two different roads that you're traveling.
Exactly. At the same time, I do that too, Melissa. I love that. I'd say, look, I'm going to walk two different paths with you, right? I'm going to try my best to get you the best offer possible with all the information that I have, and I'm going to collect more. And at the same time, I'm going to get ready for trial. And in the end, you're going to decide which path we're going to walk on.
Right. And the truth is, and this is what the reality of being a criminal defense attorney is even really good trials, juries can get it wrong. There are innocent people convicted, right? And even some bad trials you win. I mean, juries do weird decisions. So a trial is a gamble because it's not a guarantee.
Sure.
And unfortunately, I will say what we don't say out loud, there's a trial tax. And some people will say it's not a trial tax, they're just not getting the plea bargain, right? They're not getting the bargain. But the penalty is so much worse after trial.
Still feels like a tax.
So it feels like a tax, whether it is or it isn't.
Yeah.
But, if you're looking at an offer of 6 years, and if you lose the trial, there's a potential of 10 to 30 years. and you're probably not going to get the 10, right? They have to make that decision. I say it's your life and your freedom. I can fight for you, but I don't have to do the time if I lose. So it's your life, all of those things. Yeah. But I do say the dual roads, So it was great. It was great talking to you. If you ever want to come on my podcast, or if anyone from the Public Defender's Office has anything else that they want to share, this is all I do is criminal defense, public service programming. I do a lot of Jewish family services, and other nonprofits, and wellness. Those are my 3 priorities right now.
Great. Well, I'm glad we touched on all of those, Melissa.
We
I guess
did.
I'm not surprised, considering those are your priorities.
But you hit them organically. You hit them. It wasn't me.
Right.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Mighty MERP podcast. Mighty MERP is available on iTunes, Spotify, and all your favorite apps and players. But the best way to experience the show is to visit mightymerp.com, where you can subscribe, rate, or submit a voice message to the show. That's mightymerp.com.